This was a time when religion had a more dominant place in daily life, and so the date was preceded by Anno Dom, an abbreviation for the Latin Anno Domini, meaning year of our Lord. This highlights another one of the challenges in transcribing documents that was mentioned previously, and that is the problem created by the extensive use of abbreviations to save time in writing. Often the meaning of these are sometimes lost to time. The meeting is additionally dated from the ascension of the reigning sovereign, being the 6th year of the reign of our sovereign lord, King George. This was George I, King of Great Britain and Ireland from August 1st, 1714, and ruler of the Duchy and Electorate of Brunswick-Luneburg, the formal name for Hanover, and he was the first monarch of the House of Hanover. All laws were dated and codified by the reigning monarch, and that reckoning started the year they ascended to the throne. By the way, there are all sorts of complications with this dating due to the often confused state of when monarchs ascended to the throne, so let this simple explanation suffice. The first Tuesday was April 5th, 1720, but this date is in the old Julian calendar, then in use in Great Britain and its dependencies. Under the new dating system, the Gregorian calendar, the date was April 15th, 1720. But it is not that simple. It was not until September 1752 that Great Britain switched from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. This adds even more fun in interpreting documents and putting them in their correct context. To achieve the change, 11 days were omitted from the calendar, i.e., the day after September 2nd, 1752, was September 14th, 1752. The law also changed the first day of the new year from March 25th, which is why the royal patents required the quit rent to be paid on that day to January 1st. This change often makes precise dating difficult, as in addition, the change in New Year Day meant that 1751 was a short year just short of 3 months. This created some confusion until it was all sorted out. If we did something like this today, it would be more difficult, but the 18th century was still a period when time was not as important as today, and there were often no real concern about the date or time for most people. Knowing the context is vital to understand the meaning and impact of a document. Just transcribing a document often is only the beginning. We have to ensure that we trace the why it was created, but also the who and where, as well as the time frame of the document to determine its place in history and its full meaning. It is this information that brings the life to not only the document, but the people who prepared it. The precinct or district of Islip was composed of lands that by royal patent were originally held by 5 families. While many histories state that there was no connection among the patentees, recent research shows that there were close relationships among the patentees. The most westerly patent was held by the Willits brothers, Thomas and Richard, who did business with William Nicol, the largest landholder. A Thomas Willits was one of those who were elected to office. Since both brothers had a son named Thomas, one of these may have been the named official. It is believed that Isaac Willits was a brother of the 2 patent holders. The next patent was granted to Stephen von Cortlandt, who was the uncle of William Nicol's wife and a member of the Colonial Council serving alongside William Nicol. By 1720, this grant had been sold off by the Van Cortlandt family, and portions of the property were now owned by both Timothy Carl and John Mowbray. The land that is now Bayshore and Brentwood was covered by a patent held by John Mowbray, who also did business with William Nicol. The documents that support this patent are in the Town of Islip Historic Collection. The royal patent that covers what is now Islip School District was held by Andrew Gibb, who was a law partner and business associate of William Nicol. While Andrew Gibb may or may not have still been in Islip, there were some people with the same surname in town. We do know that he had a son, William, who was listed as one of the 28 freeholders in 1720. William would serve in various town offices until 1731. The remainder of the land that comprises the modern town of Islip were covered by royal patents held by William Nicol. All the original patentees were also at one time or another involved in the governance of the Colonial of New York. This entry shows that 4 of the 5 persons elected by the 28 freeholders, that is qualified voters, who were all male property holders, had the same last names as one of the patentee families. The first supervisor was Benjamin Nicol, the oldest surviving son of William Nicol. In 1720, William Nicol was still a member of the Colonial General Assembly from Suffolk County and was 63 years old and in failing health. Benjamin would inherit the Nicol's lands in 2 years upon the death of his father. The law was carefully crafted by the Speaker of the Colonial Assembly, who in 1710, William Nicol, seems to both require... The law was carefully crafted by the Speaker of the Colonial Assembly, who in 1710, William Nicol, seems to both require and not require them to form a government. There are several things hidden in this deceptively simple document. When the information here is combined with the law, what we know of the patentees and residents, and the letters of the colonial governor, we can see exactly what was going on. First, the creation of this district, or precinct, prevented the surrounding towns from laying claim to the land held by the patentees. The original Crown plan was that all the towns that existed when Suffolk County was formed would go from shore to shore. If the plan had been followed, the land that is today the town of Islip would have been split among Huntington, Smithtown, and Brookhaven. The Act, using the legal term shall, required the formation of a government. This wording forestalled the surrounding towns from incorporating any of the patented lands as described in the law into their boundaries, as the law gave specific boundaries to this requirement. Then, by using the word may, which in legal terms is permissive but not a requirement, and without specifying a date of the establishment for this government, meant that the Islip could decide on its own when to form that government. Therefore, the act written, as we believe, by William Nicol shows that he was a skilled attorney and designed the law so it stopped the other towns but did not bind the freeholders of Islip. Second, carefully note the offices that were incorporated into the act. The office of supervisor was not one that had any real authority at that time, but rather was the person designated to represent the people of the town at the meetings of the Board of Supervisors that ran the county. This board also set the taxes to be raised to support the county government. Having Benjamin Nicol as supervisor, his father on the Colonial Assembly, and various family and business connections in government offices meant that the Nicol family, therefore Islip, controlled Suffolk County. Third, the law required the election of a board that consisted of 4 other offices in addition to the supervisor: 2 assessors, who set the worth of property for taxation, a collector, who had to collect taxes, and a constable, who enforced any tax collection area. In other words, all the officials required by the law were those involved in setting and collecting taxes. The precinct could set its own tax rates, and therefore had complete control of who, would, and what was paid. Islip was free from the tax and funding requirements of the other towns and only had to fund its own needs and collect for the county. Thus, they saved a great deal of money, as the governor intimated that this was good for the speaker, but in fact it was good for all those who held land in what is now the town of Islip. There is a 4th fact to consider here. All the patentee families had been through a period of history where there had been a great deal of upheaval and change. The Nicol family had lived in England during a time of civil war and government change. In addition, the colony of New York itself also had undergone a number of changes of government and periods of great strife. So the inhabitants of Islip wanted to live in a place where they had some control over their lives with minimum impact from other towns and the world at large. This act and this first page of the town minutes demonstrates this leave us alone attitude that would be the hallmark of the future town of Islip. So when did Islip become a town of the state of New York? The New York State Legislature passed an act on March 7, 1788, that declared Islip one of the towns of New York. A second law had to be passed on March 8, 1790, to bring the boundaries of Islip and Brookhaven in line with the royal patents. The western boundary would be mired in a lawsuit between Huntington and Islip that would take a number of years to be settled. So, the 1683 date in the town seal celebrates the first land purchase by William Nicol in November of that year. This is the first in a series of online presentations from the Islip Town Clerk's office to celebrate 300 years of recording, preserving, and interpreting the story of the people of Islip Town.